1450 KMMS, 1340 KPRK. Joining me in studio, Dr. Andy David. He is the Israeli Consul General to the Pacific Northwest here in the U.S. Is the Mideast ready for democracy? I look at the failed government in Iraq. I look at the Palestinian elections in Gaza. In both situations, the Palestinian government is not what the United States wanted. Many people think that's a failed attempt at democracy at this point. You look at the government that was set up in Iraq, failed and restructured again. Why doesn't democracy take hold in the Middle East?
Well, first of all, democracy was never in the Middle East. It was there were parliaments and there were elections, but not really. When you get 99% people voting in Syria for leadership, for the same leadership, you understand it's not a true democracy. But I think that Chris, you and I, you as an American and me an Israeli, we're very fortunate to live in democracies. But I think that we confused the term democracy with free election. We started the process started in those countries after those tyrants were gone with free election. Free election is not the beginning of the process. It's the end of the process. The beginning of the process is building a middle class, is freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, equality, transparency, curbing down corruption, having a judicial system that is reliable. When you have all of those things in place, then the end process will be free and fair elections. But if you start with the elections and don't have everything else in place, it will fail. It failed in Gaza. It failed in Libya. It failed in Iraq. In a way, it failed in Afghanistan. So you don't start with free elections because then somebody else will take advantage of it. Somebody who's not interested in democracy will take over and kill the little buds of democracy that may arise. So I think the process is longer, needs more investment, to invest in civil society, build organization, guarantee transparency of government, and so on and so forth. Guarantee the basic freedoms that we all cherish so much, but we take them for granted. So that's the process that needs to take, and that's a big investment.
And the idea of democracy being based on a strong middle class is an idea that was introduced to me by Dr. Robert Kaplan, a political scientist. How does Israel succeed then? Because even though it's coalition government right now, I believe Prime Minister Netanyahu holds a one-seat advantage, but there is a strong middle class. And is that what the success of Israel in the Middle East is based upon?
Well, I think that's one component of it. But, just read our newspapers and you'll see the freedom of the press, freedom gatherings. People can have the freedom of assembly. Women serving both in the army, in the government, in the parliament, Supreme Court judge, state controller. So equality for genders. We have Arab parliament members in Israel. We had Arab ministers. We go to any hospital in Israel and you see the number of minority doctors, nurses, pharmacists. So you have to have all those things in place. And the most important thing I would say is, what are your values? And when your values are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then democracy will follow. But when the main value is honor and nothing else, then you're not willing to compromise. You're not willing to give space to the other tribe because your tribe has to have the honor. When you have a clan society, it's much more difficult to have democracy because you know that if your clan does not rule, then the other clan will, and you will be suppressed. So a history that is not embedded with those values needs to be changed, but that change is very, very slow. And you know what? Maybe democracy is not for everyone. I do believe it is, but there are many people there who don't believe that democracy is for them, the best thing for them. So I think it starts with a lot of education and a lot of investment. It's a long process.
It is 1450 KMMS, 1340 KPRK. My name is Chris Griffin. Joining me in the studio, Dr. Andy David is the Israeli Consul General to the Pacific Northwest here in the United States. Back to ISIS, or ISIL, or Islamic State, whatever term is in vogue these days. The big news that Turkey is entered the fray, which is a convoluted whole nother issue. But a nation in the region that's been quietly absent from the conversation are the Jordanians. Do you have any insight as to why they seem to be sitting on the sidelines?
Well, the Jordanians have been sitting for some time on the sidelines until that horrible incident when ISIS caught one of their pilots and burned him alive. I know for a fact that Jordanians are acting militarily against ISIS, going after them, even beyond their borders. So I don't think Jordan is passive here. But let's remember the power of Jordan. Jordan is bigger than Israel, but their economy is maybe 10% of that of Israel. Jordan is by itself a country which has internal tensions between the Hashemites, the tribe of the king, and Palestinians that they have there, and refugees from Syria, refugees from Iraq. So about 30% of Jordan's population today is refugees. So there's a big burden on the kingdom, on Jordan. We're trying to help. For example, we've transferred large quotas of water to Jordan just for them to have drinking water for those refugees, and we'll do whatever we can to help Jordan. But at the end of the day, Jordan by itself will not be able to take care of ISIS. It must be a coalition.
Dr. David, do you have time to tolerate me for two more topics?
Of course. Pleasure.
And I thank you for your time. Again, I want to talk about the Palestinian issue. Will in our lifetime, you appear to be a younger man than I am, but in our lifetime, will there be a two-state solution?
Well, I certainly hope so because, I am maybe a young man, but I remember when we signed the peace agreement with Egypt, just a few years before that, that was our deadliest war with Egypt. The hatred that was coming out of Egypt was frightening, but it all depends on leadership. An Egyptian leader came, Sadat, President Sadat, came and said, enough. We went the wrong way. Now it's time for us to go the right way. And within just a couple of years, we signed a peace agreement with him. The same with Jordan. Jordan was an enemy of Israel, and no longer. That's the case. I believe we can do the same with the Palestinians. It might be more complicated, but I truly believe in leadership. In our case, in the Israeli case, since the Oslo process, we changed already 6 or 7 prime ministers, and the Israeli public knows how to react through elections. We're very impatient. Sometimes we don't wait 4 years. Like the last government, we didn't wait 4 years, and we went to election. I believe that on the Palestinian side, since their establishment, the PLO was established in 1964, since then they only had 2 leaders. None of them was elected in elections. Not even the current one. He was appointed, never elected. He already missed 3 rounds of elections because he postponed them. So we believe that once the Palestinians will manage to create some kind of leadership that is willing to give up part of their dream in order to get the other part, we will be willing to do the same. We proved that in the past. I'm sure we can prove it again in the future.
Yes, because in the last, maybe 15, if no more than 20 years, the agreement has been 3 sentences away. 3 sentences. It's that close.
Well, you're right. And if you ask any expert in the region, everybody could draw basically about 95 to 97% of how the agreement will look like. The arrangements on water, on borders, the holy places. I mean, it's pretty known there. The question is, the pool is in front of you. Are you willing to jump in? And jumping in is very difficult. If I'm looking at the Palestinian population, community, society, nation, at the moment they're divided. They're divided between a secular nationalist movement, the PLO, and a radical Islamist, expansionist Muslim Brotherhood type of society in the form of Hamas. It's like oil and water. It's very hard to mix them. And they've been trying to reconcile, but it's not working. It's not working because they hold totally different ideologies. Hamas is more of the ideology of ISIS, no borders to Islam, rejection of any solution with Israel. Israel doesn't have a right to exist. They have a platform which is very anti-Semitic. And the Palestinians have to decide which way they want to take. At the moment, I think they need to get their act together. And when they do, they will find us as a real partner.
It is 1450 KMMS, 1340 KPRK. In studio, Dr. David, Israeli Consul General to the Pacific Northwest here in the United States. In a little more than half an hour, President Obama will be speaking at American University, passing on information on the P5+1 Iranian nuclear deal. Are you expecting to hear anything new from the president in a little more than half an hour?
Well, I just want to say this, that we have great respect for President Obama. During his presidency, collaboration in strategic collaboration, intelligence, military have been better than ever before. The closeness between our two establishments, military, intelligence, are very, very close and good. We believe that President Obama wants what's good for America and what's good for Israel. We differ on this issue. I don't know if he will say something new. I know that he said before that the alternative to this deal is going to war. We disagree. We think that there are many other alternatives. And I hope that those alternatives will be the ones that will come out at the end of the 60-day period that Congress has to assess this agreement.
Dr. David, forgive me for asking this question, but my mother is listening. And she has become fascinated with Mossad, the intelligence agency for the nation of Israel. If she were to send an application, would they consider her?
Well, Chris, mothers are the most important thing.
Yes.
So I promise that if she sends an application, I'll make sure that they receive it. I don't know what would be the answer, but they will receive it.
Dr. David, I appreciate your time and conversation today. Thank you for your insight. And just looking at your resume, you served all over the globe. I hope you enjoy the United States more than Azerbaijan.
I have great appreciation to the American people, to America. I admire what you did here, and I hope that you continue to do that with us as your friends. Thank you very much, Chris.